Welcome to Stuvies, where you guessed it, we talk about philosophy. Today, on the very first episode, I actually have my very first guest, my good friend, Micheal Minshew. Say hey, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
So, would you like to talk about what we were doing earlier today?
We were filming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what were we filming?
We were filming this little short film that I'm working on.
Okay. And when you say that you're working on, who is you? Tell everybody about yourself.
Well, where do I begin? There's a lot to unpack here. I don't know the time constraints we have, so I will try to condense it.
Well, I kind of see it as it's a natural conversation, interview type scenario. So just however long it goes.
I could be very long-winded.
Oh, we both can.
Those people, whoever knows me knows. Right. I tell them it's like if I need to shut up, just tell me.
Right. Well, we went to take a break.
Don't be nice. I can take it.
We went to take a break earlier today in the middle of filming. And it turned into a whole podcast in my driveway.
Yeah, we should have been recording.
Yeah, but we're both ADHD, so we both get off topic here. So
tangent. Yeah.
Start with the beginning.
In the beginning, no, I'm just kidding.
When a man loves a woman.
I guess I am a 42-year-old nerd. I've always been into production. I have a studio in my basement. I have always been part of producing, running sound for like plays and theater and stage productions, running sound for like front of house for bands. I am also a musician, speaking of bands. And the reason I have a studio in my basement is because I like to tinker around with my musical ideas. And I guess you could say that I got bitten by the film bug because it's always been something that I not necessarily aspired to do. It was more or less like a fleeting thought that occurred every now and again. Like, it'd be cool to like make a film. That's kind of cool. And I just, through my working first in radio and then moving over and working in television broadcasting, I met this gentleman named Jay who studied film, learned how to be a director, wants to be a film director. Since I am a big audio nerd, he had a pet project, a film that he was shooting. It's actually a feature-length film a couple of years ago before the pandemic. And he tapped me to do all of the sound, like all the audio, do the sound design, do like the Foley and the mixing. He wanted me to handle all of that. And not knowing what all that entailed, I was like, sign me up.
Which I find, personally, I don't know your stance on this, but I find that's kind of the case with anything creative, is you sign up for it, not realizing fully the work that goes in.
Right.
And you don't realize until about halfway through when you're like, oh shit, this is a lot.
Right.
At which point you kind of have to flee or commit, I suppose.
Yeah, and I found myself, speaking to that, I found myself in a point in my personal growth, my personal life, where it's like I've started things and then stopped. I was a little bit unreliable, and I didn't want to let my friend down. And so, like, despite me having some severe personal things going on, I fought through all of that to try and do the best that I could and provide as much help as I could to my friend who was shooting this film. I want to tell you, I got an education during this shoot, and the story behind how this thing just made it to post is kind of amazing. We had the pandemic to deal with and lockdown, so we had a couple of meetings together to gather all of the minds together to figure out, first, can we do this? Is it possible? And then to spitball ideas, brainstorm about how to make everything a reality. And lots of great ideas. We had 4 or 5 different meetings. It was 2019.
Okay, so this was a pre-COVID project.
Oh, it started out that way.
Right.
But, it's tell God your plans and he will laugh.
Right. Did it have a name at that point?
It did.
Okay.
And it was actually, it had been something like a completely different premise. I don't want to divulge a whole bunch of hearsay.
Right.
Because I don't know the entire story. I don't want to be gossiping.
Right.
But from my understanding, it was, more of a series or something. Don't quote me on that, but it was something different, and he adapted the story to a feature film. So he condensed it, I guess you would say.
And the name that the feature film ended up having would be
Under Glass.
Under Glass,
which is currently on Amazon Prime for
That's what
rent
I was just
or
about
buy.
to say, and it's very affordable. It's $2.99 to rent and $4.99 to
it's
buy.
$9.99 I think to buy.
Oh, okay. So
It's
yeah,
$10 to buy it. Or,
right.
$2, $3 to rent it.
Right. And so you did all these. You did more than sound design, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I got an education. I did more. I helped with grip. If you don't know what that is, it's rigging, helping rig up cameras and holding cameras and doing helping out with lighting and production assistant work. There was a particular part. Well, a lot of the parts of the movie it takes place inside a car, and so it's the dialogue that happens inside a car, and so it's in the car driving. And instead of being practical, we shot in front of a green screen, and we converted our friend Tarver. We converted his garage at the time into a studio sound stage. We hung up the green screen and everything. And one of the jobs that I had on the days that I was there to help was taking a 2x4 and propping up under the back of the car and just moving it up and down to make it look like the car was moving. Because we, would later went and shot the back plate to composite in on the green screen. And the finished product, I don't know if you can tell that it's composited in. It looks good. Together with a lot of the B-roll that was shot of the car, practically moving and driving, it looks good. I was impressed.
So and I would love to have Jay on as well at some point, if willing.
We have to nail him down on that one. I'll talk to him.
Right, as long as the scheduling permits it, he would be a great one to have. But from the time that you came onto the project to the time it was released, which was
last year.
Last year? Okay.
This was Christmas of last year.
Christmas of last year. So,
and it's taken this long. It's just recently been just got picked up.
Okay.
He's been shopping it around.
Gotcha. So from start to finish, how long do you think that took?
About 3 years.
3 years?
But, that's only because, saying we had the first couple of production meetings, and I remember, Christmas happened, and then we had January, and there was, the last couple of weekends in January, I went down to Macon and spent the weekend there, marathon weekends. I work overnight here in Atlanta. And so I was driving down to Macon, helping them out. And instead of asking for the day off, I was coming back to Atlanta, working my full 8-hour shift.
Oh, wow.
Getting back on the road and going back down to Macon for the second day and helping out, and then coming back to Atlanta and collapsing. Like, that did not last very long.
Understandably so.
That lasted about 4 or 5 weekends, and then I was like, I can't do this. About the third or fourth weekend, I had fallen asleep at my mother's house because I've got to take a nap. I called them up and said I can't be there at 8. I'm going to need to take a nap. I'll try to get there about 10. They said it was fine. It was 11:30 before I got there because it was, just I was asleep.
At that point, you're so worn down.
Just like, and I'm like, I'm not even getting paid for this. At that time I wasn't, I'm doing it for the love, for the learning, for the love of my friend, to help his project get off the ground, And, it's like, I learned that you don't have to, like, die to help people, is I was giving too much.
Right.
Really. I burned out so quickly. But it was that, and then it was like a month later we went into lockdown.
Because you said that was like late January?
It was late January when I started.
Okay.
Right? And then we were into February and I burned out.
Right, because I think March was when everything kind of shut down, if I remember correctly.
Right. And so they did a couple of weekends in February without me, which was great because I had already taken them through and showed them how to use the microphones and everything and how to use the recorder. And of course, Jay has his set up. He's got a recorder, and they had some mics that they got on loan. And they knew how to use it. All the equipment, they knew how to use it out. We were all in television. We worked at the Fox 24 and the ABC affiliate.
Okay.
That's there in town. We all work together. So we know about equipment, how expensive the stuff is. It's like we're, shooting with expensive lenses, shooting with, not $10,000 cameras, mind you, DSLRs, but for an independent film, it was roughly, I think, about a $6,000 budget.
Oh, wow.
Like, the man was paying out of his pocket for this thing.
Which, in this day and age, it's so easy to make your own content. I use the term easy loosely, but the tools that you need to accomplish it are so readily available. But it's crazy how much things can add up, and you can do it for much cheaper than that.
But yeah, I think he was coming from, like, this is how film is done.
Gotcha.
So it was like we had a notebook of like all the shots. It was all planned out. It was very, very like studio driven. It
was professional.
Yeah, very much professional. It's like I learned like the pacing, and I learned so much. Like, but me being an audio guy, I should have known this fact. But back when they used to record, they would roll tape for the audio, right? Well, those tape machines, it took a minute for them to get up to speed, like the reels to get up to speed, right? And so what I learned was when the audio guy, when it was up to speed, and then the director could hit action, when they could call it and start the scene. You're roll tape, rolling audio, we got lights, everyone's in place. Then they would call out speed, which meant we were ready. Then they would slate it, which is you name the scene and what you're doing and all that, and you clap so you could line it up later in post.
Which is what most people see, and most people don't realize that that's what, because that's, in television and movies, when they're portraying something being filmed, it's always that, snap, blah, 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 take one. Yep.
That's slating it, right? And then it's there, you ready? And he calls action, and they start, and they go off. I watched some really great talent act in this, and a lot of it blew me away. Like, these guys are just starting out. They're going places if they get the right opportunities.
And do you think that working with that level of talent and that level of production inspired you to want to pursue your own projects? Because I don't think we've covered yet the fact that I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in a lot of ways this was the catalyst to what we ended up working on today.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll let you go into detail about how much you want to give away story-wise, but I think it's at least safe to assume that you're making a short film. That can be publicly stated, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be a short film. I don't know how long. Like, I think the criteria is anything longer than, or longer than, or shorter than. What a feature is like 140 minutes, I think. Something like that. It could be as short as 9 minutes.
Gotcha.
Those, like, between there. I'm not sure. I'm not in the business. Like, why am I doing this? I think it's cool. I want to give it a shot. See what I can do.
Right. and you're the first person that I know of personally, because I've not met Jay yet, that has decided to take on a film project, like a full feature-length film project. I have buddies who have made little things here and there, but I said full feature-length, but something with a story, something with substance. I guess what like little bits or skits is what I'm familiar with the people around me doing. But you've came up with a story and decided to put that into action, pun intended. So at what point from working on Jay's film did you decide to do something of your own?
Oh, it was when we reached post. Because I was just so coupled with my personal things, which is a podcast completely separate from this. It's a whole nother subject that I was going through my personal life. Just say I struggled, as we all do from time to time. But coupled with that, it was just overwhelming. There was a lot of information that I was taking in. I was there. I was helping out. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, give me something to do. I'll do it. Like, I'm here to help. I'm a pair of hands. Need me to go get coffee? I'll go get coffee. Need me to go get food? I'll go get food. Bottles of water. Need someone to help with their hair? I don't care. Like, I'll do it. Like, I'm here to help. Because they had audio good. They just needed the equipment, I think. That's not to talk down my nose or put myself down or anything, but they did shoot a majority of it without me. As we started to open back up after COVID, they started having the weekends again, and it was just I was going through my personal stuff with family, and so I wasn't available, and they were fine with that. So I would get the email updates, and I'm still sort of part of this, and they were sending in the business it's called dailies.
Yeah.
So it's like they were sending me what they did on the day, and I'd sit there and I'd look at it, and I'm like, this is so cool. It's like I have been a little bit a part of this, but what I knew, what we were screaming towards was post. It's like he was going to bring all of the stuff ready with all of the audio, and I was going to have to mix it down in my studio. And I racked my brain for a solid year on exactly what to do about the fact that I operate on Windows. My operation is Windows based, and he's running Mac, and he's editing in Premiere. And so the project file, to open up in an audio editor, it's not like I can open up an XML file. And all of that is still sort of foreign to me, how to export things and get things working. I knew that, my digital audio workstation is Cakewalk Sonar. I've been a Sonar person since I first started learning. On a whim one day, this shows my age. Back in Macon, there was a store called Media Play. And they had like DVDs and CDs and books and comic books and computer software. They had like the little bitty kitschy T-shirts and merch and stickers and posters, and they sold candy. I mean, it was a great store. But in the software section, there was a little
Back
music.
When those existed.
Huh?
Back when those existed.
Yeah, they had a little music creation software, and it was from Cakewalk. It was called Music Creator, and it was sort of like a very light version of a DAW. Now, before that, I had looked at Pro Tools.
As everyone does.
Right? And getting that to work on a PC is a nightmare. But I had, at the time, I did have people that had stuff, and I was, through being friends with other people, I was able to, look at their setup and see it. And, they were running the light version, which is like Pro Tools. I think at the time, the light version, I could be wrong. I could be misremembering it because it was long ago. But it only had you could only use 4 tracks.
Yeah.
Or something like that. There was that was the limitation. But I was reading on the box for this music creator, it was unlimited tracks. I was like, really? Unlimited tracks? It's a multi-track editor, and it came with all kinds of plugins and virtual instruments, and it was band in a box, And so I put that on I was living with my mother at the time. I put that on the family computer, and I hooked up my little crappy computer mic, and I started making stuff. Started recording setting my drums up in the living room, and with that one mic, just recording my drums, I started playing around with it. I started doing, vocal things. That was right about the time podcasting started to hit big as well, if I remember correctly. Podcasting had been around a while. I can tell you what it was. MySpace.
MySpace.
You remember MySpace?
So
So that was
06.
That time period. Because I remember me and my friends at the time recorded something like a podcast type thing and uploaded it to the music. They had where you could upload music like an artist page. We uploaded it to that, and it would just play on a loop.
So wait, you also had an interest in podcasting as well? Because I think I've not went this far back with you in the podcasting realm.
Right.
So you even had the bug back then as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Creativity has just been... I've always been involved in something.
Right.
Because it's I've got so much inside. I've got all these great ideas, and I've had to learn, and sadly, recently, that you can't really do everything.
Yeah, I think that's what I've kind of fallen into with this sort of network as well. But I know for me personally, if I'm not doing something, I mentioned this to you earlier, if I'm not making something sort of creatively, my anxiety and depression gets much worse.
Absolutely.
So I wonder how much of and maybe this is a topic for another show.
Yeah.
One that you and I have talked about doing. How much of creativity is rooted in soothing some type of, for lack of a better term, mental illness?
Self-soothing, yeah.
Or self-care.
Self-care,
is what my therapist would call it.
Like, I've been... Let me back up and state that when Jay's film hit post, it took us about... I always have said, at least from then until now, when I talk about it, I've said it's spent about a year in post. And that's only because it's not like we were doing it every day. This was like, we all have our jobs that we do. It's like we're getting together on the weekends. We're shooting, 14-hour day on a Saturday and then another 14-hour day on a Sunday. And then we might not work on it again for another 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. And then we get together and then it happens again. So when it hit post, it was like my best days are Sundays because I'm not going to kill myself like I was doing before. This I have learned. So when Jay was like, all right, I've got it edited together. I've got rough cut together. I've got everything consolidated. It's good. We could start getting this thing mixed and put together. And he was like, when is a good time for you? And, I say it was a year. I want to say it was maybe May or June of 23 that we finally got around. Like, I know that we were talking about it back that March, but I don't think we really started hitting things hard until like June. Like my memory is rough because that was I was dealing with getting sober at that point. And so a lot of the memory is still kind of fuzzy. I'm like coming out of the fog.
Right.
I'm rebuilding my life, and it's just not to go too deep into my personal matters, but yeah, putting my life back together, and so going through post, it was like every Sunday afternoon for like 5 hours. We're down in my basement studio, and we're either off on a tangent talking or working. And what was born out of that, one of those tangents, was I'd had this idea because I was seeing on my screen, on my computer screen, I was seeing the actors and them play acting a scene because my mind I was in that headspace. I had an inspiration for a scene, and I ran that by Jay. And of course he's like, yeah, we can make something out of that. Like I do. I'm like, hey, let's do the damn thing, right? Enough talking, let's do it, right? And as time went on, the next idea happened. I would just write it down, chuck it aside, continue to work on his thing. Another idea would happen, write it down, chuck it aside. And then, as we were coming to a close, like this was literally like the only thing left I had to do was put the music elements, like soundtrack stuff, put those in. We already had those placed, but they weren't mixed. I had all of the dialogue where it needed to be. We had things like ADR work, which is overdubbing after the fact. You're redubbing stuff in. Because we had one scene where the actor said one thing, but the mouth says something else. because he said something different on a different take.
Gotcha.
And so what we had to do was just have him do the line again, just audio. And they record, like, the original recording was inside a car, and the other recording was like inside his bathroom. So acoustically speaking, those are two very different places. The bathroom is more ambient than inside a car. And so he had this natural reverb on his speaking voice that no matter what you would do, it's going to be different. And so I had to match the audio. I had to figure out a way to match the audio to make it seem cohesive.
So you had to essentially troubleshoot.
Well, it's called Go Out to Plugin Alliance by SPL Deverb. That thing worked. I tell you what.
We are not sponsored.
No, but I used a plugin. I used software. Like, it's amazing,
right,
that we have that. You know,
I mean, the tools that are at anybody doing anything creative now's fingertips it's insane. Like what you can accomplish on your own.
You have, like, my God, like, we could get into that. Like, I'm audio nerd, so
right.
That's another podcast in of itself. But you can put your tracks in, like, Sunset Sounds Studio via a plugin.
Right.
Like, what a time to be alive. That's nuts.
As a matter of fact, I know that you've done some DSLR shots on your current project.
Right.
But for the most part, you're just using your phone, correct?
Yeah, I'm using both.
Yes.
I'm using the DSLR for, like, really, really super, super critical things, like close-ups and very artistic things. Stuff where it's like B-roll or things that are happening with multiple actors. Those kind of things, like wide shots, I'm using the phone. It's good.
And honestly, I've seen footage that has been shot on this, and it looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Let's mention the fact that all the grip and rigging and stuff for a phone is a whole lot easier.
Right. Yeah. it's. I mean, what a time to be able to create.
I mean, what was it, like John Legend shot a music video all on the iPhone?
Right.
So
I mean, there's been entire films made on iPhone. So do you think that, I suppose that working on Under Glass was, to throw the expression around, like seeing how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Absolutely.
And
it was just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Because it was a small operation. It's independent. They didn't have the backing of a giant studio.
And believe me, everybody in my life is used to just the tip.
Oh, boy.
Sorry.
Dad jokes, we got them. Or middle schooler jokes, we got them.
That's more like daddy jokes.
We has them.
But sorry, not to derail that. But so at that point, so you started with one scene and then kind of started to extrapolate on that.
Oh, yeah.
So you didn't have... I'm trying to pick your brain on sort of your creative process here. You didn't have, like, a set storyline of a beginning, middle, and end. It started somewhere.
Just a happening.
Okay, gotcha.
Like, just an idea. Like, the idea was this dude drops a gun and it shoots another guy in the head. And he gets street cred for that. Like, he gets, like, it was a total accident, but the rumor going around on the street is that he took so-and-so out just because so-and-so happened to be involved with the mafia.
Gotcha.
Or now is the case with the Mexican cartel. Like, it started with the mafia, but I've altered the story. Like, it morphed into something completely different than what it was when I started out.
So you're kind of, sort of, so to speak, following some type of muse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
I guess I'm just along for the ride. My mind, like, I have to recognize when I get ADHD with something, and it's like I'm going way off here in left field with this. This is too much. This isn't. I've completely lost what I'm doing. Let me backtrack. Hold on. Let's revamp. Let's regroup and see what's actually where this needs to go.
And thus far, do you feel like you reached that point with this project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was when we shot our first scene. What was it, like 3 months ago?
Right.
2 months
Which
ago?
I was.
When we shot that first scene, like that time period, sitting with the footage that we got, I sat down to edit it together. And this is what I did. I did it that night because I was that excited.
I remember that because I was.
You were like, holy shit.
Yeah,
this looks good.
I remember being oddly, because I have zero background in any type of film work. I mean, I have the strangest relationship with film to where I loved it for years, and then something happened and I just stopped watching for no real reason.
See, Jay and I have had this conversation where it's the writing. It's like the stories. Like right now, what's happening is they're retelling all of the same stories with the same characters. Like, you can tell the same story over and over again, but give us different characters.
Okay, so
like don't make a reboot. Like, tell a different story. It could be the same storyline. It could be the same plot, but make it different characters and different circumstances, and you know what I'm saying?
And see, I'm so glad to hear somebody else say that, because I was kind of under the impression that I was just being pretentious. And
well, there is you can be
right.
Like, there's danger in
level to that.
There is danger in going into like snobbery land. I do it. I do it with audio.
I mean, we all do. I mean,
I'm like, that's not a Neve preamp. That's a Focusrite. Who cares?
Well,
does it sound good?
I think with any sort of passion or hobby, that if you go down that sort of rabbit hole long enough, it does end up kind of developing that in you to some degree. But dialing that back is important. But to get back on topic here, I had interest in film. At one point, I wanted to be a director or a writer at one point in time, because one mutual thing that I think you and I share is Kevin Smith.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's growing up, being a young teenager and watching Kevin Smith movies, I was convinced at that time that that's what I wanted to do. And life happened, and my sort of avenues changed.
I mean, come on, like Mallrats,
right?
Clerks, like amazing.
I mean, nobody does dialogue like Kevin Smith.
Absolutely, like chef's kiss.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm doing right now. We don't have video, so it's like,
mwah.
Yeah.
So, I had interest. So you asked me if I wanted to be a part, and I agreed just to help. And just to be a part of something.
Yeah, I remember you were like, I don't know how good I'm going to be. And,
right.
And I can't remember what I said, but it was like something to the effect of, just try it out.
Well, I know that, and I think you kind of have this about you as well. At this point in time, I think it's most beneficial for me to not say no to anything creative, to be more of a yes man. Because before, I had this sense of like, well, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do these things. But you don't really know until you try and ultimately fail, whether or not it's going to go anywhere. Which, I remember being just excited to see what we'd shot that day. And you threw it together, that night, and we were both actually really happy with it. And I'm not saying that has anything to do with my acting, but just the way seeing something come together like that, regardless of who was on screen, was so satisfying.
Yeah. Well, if I'm gonna nitpick, like the lighting was shit. Like I have no clue what I'm doing. Uh, but the framing and the composition of the shot, is good. The way we shot it, the lines, the way it was done, the way it was edited together, all that's fine. Like, if I'm going to nitpick, the lighting was horrible.
Which you did kind of solve creatively.
Color grading and stuff like that. But, there's only so much you can do. What came out the other end of that process was something completely different than what I had in my mind. There's a movie with Denzel Washington and is it Jared Leto called The Little Things? There's a scene where Denzel Washington's character is in like a hotel room, and it's right next to this big green neon sign, and it pops up. It's this gigantic wash of green, and he's framed up in this green hue. Like, I know they accentuated it with coloring. I know this just because what I'm learned from Jay. And that scene came to mind. I wanted to do something similar to that with the scene with you in the car. And for whatever reason, I chose to light you from underneath, not realizing that your arm is going to be in the way. And so you've got this shadow on your arm that just should not be there. The way it's colored, it's just there. And I have to live with that. We're not reshooting it. We're just going to live with it. It is what it is.
And that being said, though, at the end of the day, whenever this is going to be finished, do you think it's going to ruin the movie, though?
No.
Exactly. So
not for me, because it's like, it's not about being perfect. It's not about being Hollywood. For me, it's about making something. I want to be able to say, I did this. Like, when this is all said and done, like, for me personally, I'm going to get real personal here. When I was 9 years old, I wanted to work in radio. Well, I've already done that. I wanted to work at a television studio. Well, I'm still doing that. I wanted to be in a band. I've done that more times than I can count on my fingers and toes. I've been in and out of bands and done, I've always been doing something, either music related or production related. It's my life. And the other thing was film. I wanted to either work on a feature, which now I've done. I always thought that I would be a director, but I got tapped to do the audio. Like, I never thought that I would end up doing that. And I had no clue at the time what was all involved in it. I learned. But that is something that's like, I know enough to know that I'm not going to be a director. It's involved. It's not the passion I've discovered. The passion's not there. But I can do it. I can do something creative. What I think fits me is short films, definitely. I'll do short films all day long. I think I can handle collaborating instead of it being such a set, like, I'm the director, and we have like a script supervisor, and we have wardrobe, and we have the first AC, and the camera op, and lighting, and the grip, and you know, instead of it being like that, like this independent film totally had all of that, just on a smaller scale. There were multiple people doing multiple roles, but those roles were all filled in a particular organized manner. You've seen my house. There's nothing organized about me.
Well, I mean, same here. So
it's like, I don't think if what Jay did, and he's incredibly organized. I respect that man so much for what he's been able to accomplish. And it's, you know, he deserves every opportunity in the world. And I hope things start opening up, because he's an amazing person. He's an amazing person, you know? I don't think I have it within me to do that. You know? One of the quotes that I carry with me from Jay is that he told me one day, we were sitting in my cul-de-sac after, you know, doing some work on his film. He was like, you know, being a director is like you answer questions. He's like, that's what you do. And it's like, if someone asked me, like, you know, the camera op is like, what shot is this? What are we doing? And the director goes, this is what you're doing. You answer questions, right? It's in that context. Or it's like, what's next? What are we going to do today? You know, there's all kinds of things that could be. And he took on the role more of like also producing as well. So there was more. Like, he did so much. The person that was going to do VFX, and I don't want to go into this too much. Let's just say that someone, I'm not going to name names because that's not what I do, because I have respect for everyone and what they got going on. But someone, you know, pledged support by helping with VFX, and they flaked at the last moment. And Jay had to learn new skills. Like, he didn't tell me. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He just did it, you know? And that's what I'm saying. Like, this man is amazing. And I don't mean to harp on that, but, you know, I carry that with me. And I have to look at myself. It's like, am I the man that's in charge? Does the buck stop with me on this? And it's like, well, no, I don't know. I haven't been to school for this. I've just tried my hand at it. So it's more or less like a collaborative thing. That's sort of like my space.
Okay, Tom.
That's my lane, right? You know, and it's like, that's my niche. That's where I'm going to fit in. So it's like, short films I could definitely do. I could see myself doing more than one short film. You know, one, I don't have budget for anything. We can shoot, you know, everything on my phone, you know, and I could throw it into DaVinci Resolve and edit it together and render the thing, and we've got our project, right? And you know, it's not as super involved. It's not this, like, we have to figure out how to get the file open in my software.
Right.
You know, which is on the quick fact, on the audio side of things, how I work with other musicians that have Macs, that use Macs and use Pro Tools, is I have them mix out all of the files, the individual WAV files. And I have them go ahead and commit to the sounds that they want. before I mix stuff together. Because at that point, it's not really my job to go, well, you need to, have reverb on this. You need to have... I'm mixing it together to sound cohesive at that point. If that is what I have been asked to do for whoever. And so, if they're recording at home and they're sending me tracks, sending me stuff to mix down, I will have them, I give them parameters based on what, they hope to accomplish. They send me the files and I mix them down.
And if one were to want to do that with you, what would be the name of your studios?
Oh, I see what you're doing here. I'm calling myself Daily Walk Studios, because I have 2 rooms. I have sort of a live room area and then a little control room area. And I'll call it that. I get asked all the time, is this got some kind of religious connotation? And I tell them, it's well, I'm not very religious. I'm more spiritual than I am religious. So the reason I chose Daily Walk, which I did pull from, church and religion-based things, it's because the production, the music, the studio, all the gear, all of it has been my daily walk since I was 9 years old. I've been in it. I've been interested in it. I'm either looking at gear, looking at gear. And my wife tells me all the time, stop looking at stuff.
Yeah, this is one thing I will say. This is why I don't like hobbies of any sort, because they're just financial black holes.
Right. Sometimes it's I know my wife feels it's why couldn't you just want a boat?
Why can't you just buy a yacht?
She struck the lottery. Not only did she get the audio engineer, she got a drummer.
Oh, Lord,
so, yeah. It's the 2 by themselves. I'm not running a 4-channel, little 4-track studio. I'm not running an 8-track studio. I have a 32-channel analog console.
Right.
So, and it wasn't cheap.
Yeah. I've seen it. And I remember when you got it as well. And
we drove down to Orlando to pick that thing up.
I remember that. And you made
I was
that little...
not about to ask that guy to crate that thing and send it.
Right. And what I've
that would have been expensive too.
What I've noticed about you is you've always dabbled in film in some way, because you made that little documentary about going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've always made things, and as a matter of fact, I know on your personal Facebook you share stuff, and you have the YouTube channel as well, correct?
Yes, I do.
Yep. So you have that to where you're sort of documenting all these things that are going on creatively.
And thanks for reminding me. I have stuff to edit together.
Right.
It's been a while. I need to put another video out because I've been chronicling. I've been remodeling my studio, so that's been to. Let me again reverse because I got ahead of myself here. We finished post. It was December, and you want to talk about skin of your teeth. It was Christmas had already happened, and it was that in between, that weird in between time, between Christmas and New Year's,
right?
Where it's do I have to go to work today? And it was one of those Sundays. He came over and put the finishing touches on it, and we were "Are we done? We're done." Holy fuck, we're done.
Right.
I was I'm Jay, what am I going to do with my Sunday afternoons now? I'm I'm really literally was tearing up. I'm going to miss this, it started off sort of like a burden only because I didn't know what I was doing. And I felt I was letting him down so hard. And he was I'm just going to keep coming and we're just going to work at it until we get it. And he kept the faith. He kept the faith in me, and finally, I had enough momentum and good stuff going in my life and good habits to where we finally was able to like spend the latter part of 2023 finishing up in post and getting it done. And he had it submitted and everything. And so, yeah, we got copyrighted. I remember that. He said to me, he was like, "We are now official." I'm like, "Cool." So,
Which, I mean, that is one thing that I have to say about you since I've known you since probably 2018 somewhere.
I can't remember. We moved up here from Macon in 17. So
17.
Yeah.
So it was like
So
17.
the first time I met you, we were at a rental house.
Yeah, I remember that. But one thing I've always noticed about you is how supportive you are, and like genuine and passionate, and
I just love people, man.
and kind. I mean, the mic that I'm speaking into right now was a Christmas gift from you last year. So I mean, without you, we wouldn't be here like talking.
Oh yeah, Merry
now.
Christmas, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
If I forgot.
Yeah, you're one of those people that's just a joy to be around for that, and just your tenacity to stay creative, especially in such a sort of negative world, and to not become bitter is
Well, I used to be there.
right.
I did speak on struggles. It's like we all feel it.
Right,
You know?
which this is sort of a good way to sort of advertise another show that you and I will be doing, sort of diving deeper into the topics of, I suppose, struggles.
Yeah, and mental health, especially from like a man's perspective, and sometimes not just man, but a father. That I am also a father. The best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm not like surfing for brownie points here. That's genuine. Like it's literally the best thing that I've done with my life.
And I've seen you interact with your children, and it's genuine. But I think that that's inherently you, though, honestly. And I'm not just like sitting here trying to like massage your ego because you're on the show.
Stop blowing smoke up my ass, man. No,
Right.
I'm just kidding.
That's such
I derailed the train. I'm sorry.
No, that's such a bizarre term, though, is blowing smoke up someone's ass. Like what are you blowing it with?
I don't know. I don't know where we got that from, but
anyway, it's
are you vaping?
it's inspiring to me to see you. I don't think that especially because I have also had some of the same struggles that you have had, and I don't think that I would have the balls to just say fuck it and do it if it wasn't for you. Like,
Wow, that's a big compliment.
And
I have like no clue that I have that effect.
Well, I'm fortunate, at least, not to make this about me, but you're one of those people in the quote-unquote Stuniverse that makes it all possible. I mean, without so many supportive people who have, for whatever reason, inspired me to be a part of these things, I mean, it's so easy to lose heart, especially with creativity, but in most things these days, that without that support network, I mean, it's so easy to just give it up. And the fact that you still possess that, and so many others have, around me have stayed with it, has been inspiring. And honestly, it's like, thank you for that. and like I wouldn't feel compelled to do creative things if it wasn't for people like you.
Oh, well, you're most welcome, my friend.
And you know, it's been a joy to work with you on these things. And I am so happy to see where your short film is going to go from here.
Oh yeah, it was. I put together a fake news report,
Which
which furthers the story. And not fake news as fake news. Like I'm doing the quotes.
Yeah.
Like not fake, but a fake news report. Like that's the world I come from. Like I worked at the local affiliate. I worked at 3 of them when we lived in Macon, and I put news reports on the air. I know what goes into putting together a news broadcast, and I can't take credit for the news broadcast idea. That was Jay's idea. So he was like, you ought to put together a news broadcast because you know how to do what goes in. And I was like, I think I'm going to do that. I was like, I think I could do that. And so I did it. It looks like we were just looking at it in the driveway.
And God, it looks so good. I forgot how good it looked until earlier today.
It looks like a news report.
Right.
It's a fake caller. Well, there's an Easter egg. I'm not going to say what it is, but there's an Easter egg in the news report. I'm not going to say what it is. I hope that when I get this and we put it wherever, one, that I haven't used any copyrighted material and I don't have any strikes against me. But 2, I hope there's some feedback from some people and they get the thing that I'm after, right? Because it's like the scene that I just showed Joel.
Yeah,
I know. Outside
that...
with Joel. The scene I just showed him, he was like, I even got the Kevin Smith. I was like, that's what I was going after. You got it, man.
And God, it's so inspiring and sort of soothing to depression to see these types of things and to be so close to them. I kind of I know you've said very kind things about my involvement in this project, but I don't feel like an integral. I still feel sort of off to the left,
tangential.
Yeah, exactly. But
it's like, is some of that like imposter syndrome? Like you can do the damn thing,
right?
Like it's just because I have kids. It's like Ratatouille. Everyone can cook. It's like, let them cook. Let Stu cook.
And would you say that if you had a message for anyone else out there who wants to make something, because ultimately, even though I admit that I have the balls to admit that I don't know what I'm doing with this,
as do I,
with this endeavor. If there's anybody out there who wants to do something, what advice would you give them?
Don't wait. Because I have done that. I could be a lot further along with some things, but because of my own self-doubt, with my own personal struggles and things where low self-esteem and just this isn't worth anything. This isn't. Every artist has that. They're their own worst critic, And I had this thing where I was being I was in snobby land, right? We touched on this earlier. It's not an Eve preamp. Oh my God, it's not an Eve preamp. No, I want to make sure. I have a lot of gear, but I've been buying it one piece at a time for over 20 years. That's why I have a lot of gear. I didn't buy it all at once.
Right.
And it's I know how easy it is. It's you can look up a video on YouTube on how to mix, because I do it all the time. But it's you can look And there's tutorials on how to do it. Some of it's bullshit. Some of it's actually really good advice. But everyone and their brother is like explaining and passing on the knowledge that they have. And it's inspiring to watch. But a lot of these guys, like, they're 40 and 50 years old. They're 60s. They're retired, but they're still, it's like, this is their retirement. Like, they have a house that's a studio, and they're doing freelance work, because they've already retired from what they were doing, or they've moved on, or they're continuing it, but they've just finally gotten to a point at that age where they could do it. And it's like, I used to get sucked into this. I don't want to. It's not a false sense of security. What is it? It's like this mindset that I couldn't do it because I didn't have what they had. And so, like, me getting sober and making better decisions, making adult decisions for my life and for my family has taught me, yes, it's taught me. What I was trying to say is it shifted my approach, my understanding. And it's like, I had this thought, it was like maybe a week ago, or maybe a few days. I really can't remember time.
Time is
I have trouble with time. Like, 8 hours could go by and it's like, whoa, sun's coming up.
It's still like 2013 to me.
Right.
So,
well, like, to me, the 80s was still 20 years ago.
Right.
So, ADHD moment. What was I saying? The train derailed.
The realization that you had last week.
Yeah, I put a saying on my Facebook, like I made a post, and it was, what was it? It was like, what's the best microphone? That's what it said. So, what's the best microphone? And it was like ... And then I like skipped a couple of spaces and it said, the microphone you're plugging in and using. So it's like, it don't matter if you've got an SM57. It doesn't matter if you've got, a Play School little toy microphone. Record.
Right.
Make.
Because I know for me,
like, go do it.
Right. Because I've spent years obtaining all of this stuff to make things with. And then I got all of it. And it was weird. I had a very weird phenomenon of getting all these items that I wanted. And then I fell into a deep depression because it was almost like Wile E. Coyote catching the Roadrunner.
Yeah.
Getting the gear to the point to where
this is from Acme.
I felt like, I felt like I had nothing creative in me at that point. Like,
I found myself in the same spot. It's collecting gear. I got a studio.
Right.
Over the pandemic, it just collected dust. I didn't do the first thing.
And it's so interesting to see where it took you, though, with the film project. Like,
it is interesting.
When we first met, we worked on a song together. From a great artist, Stony Dennis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, if you would have told me back then that I would be working on a film project with you, I wouldn't have, like, doubted it. Like, oh, Mike can't do that. But it's just not what I would have thought would be in the cards. So.
Oh, I never knew doing audio for an independent film that's now on Amazon Prime. Like, that's a small victory to me. It's like, and I didn't want to overshadow, like, the actors and the other people, like production crew, everyone that helped, and Jay. I didn't want to take the spotlight away from them because it is more so their accomplishment. I feel that I sort of let them down. But at the end of the day, at the end of it, I was still able to show up and finish the job. They allowed me to have my struggles and allowed life to happen. They didn't say, we're going to go find someone else. And I know I've heard this directly from Jay. It's like, well, who else was I going to call for audio? It's like, you're the person I know, so you're going to do it. I honestly think that he would have tracked me down had I disappeared and made me do it.
And see, this is the kind of support that
I say that in jest.
Well, no, I know,
not reality,
but
it is almost like that.
Not in the physical sense, but
in
in some sort of emotional sense, I suppose. And I think it's important to surround yourself with whatever it is that you're going to do. I mean, we're all getting to the age to where now it's like people are starting their own business. They're making their own stuff. They're becoming their own sort of master, I guess, of their creative world. And I don't think without a support network that we would be there. But is there any parting thoughts before we sort of, because I'm just going to spoil it for the audience, what we're most likely going to do here is transition directly into another show that we're going to be doing that inevitably will probably be on your channel of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
Correct? So, yeah. Before we sort of transition into that, is there any thing that you would like to say to anybody out there?
Y'all take care of yourselves. Like, seriously. Like, I'm speaking from experience here. Like, the self-care, it's a thing, and it needs to be a thing. If you're hurting, talk to someone. And I know what it's like when you're going through it. If you're in it, it's difficult. It's embarrassing. It's so degrading to go, my world just fell apart. But it's more common than you think. Like, really, you never know who's struggling, whatever they're going through.
I would argue that it's the most common thing.
We have that in common as a species. It's like, that's why I'll give you the shirt off my back. If you're cold, I'm going to go find you an extra jacket. If you need a place to stay, you can come stay with me. If you're hungry, I may not have the money to go buy a meal, but you know what? I got food in the kitchen at home. Come over, I'll make you something. Like, you're thirsty, I have some water, I'm going to give you half of it. It's at work. I take a peanut butter sandwich to work, and if someone is hungry, I'm like, you want half a sandwich? That's just what I do.
I think it's so important to take care of ourselves kind of first and foremost, because if you don't take care of yourself, and it took me years to learn this, if you don't care for yourself, then you'll lack the ability to care for others. But once you've taken care of yourself, then be there for people when you can. Yeah. And ultimately, I think at the root of all of this sort of creative sort of flood that's come to me lately is I want this to be a positive message for anyone who listens. And
absolutely.
There's so much negativity in the world, and this has got to be a topic for the other show, but I've stated it a couple of times on this network how negative the world is. Yeah. And admittedly, God, I came off an antidepressant recently, and it felt like I was having a manic episode, and it was tough. And
I find that it's like, I'm in it, and I'm like, wait, I'm being negative. It's like, I need to run the other way. Like, whatever, it's like, I will find, it's like, it's like I make a hasty decision. And it's like, I find myself in, it's like, no, I don't need to do that. Let's backtrack. Let's play the tape forward. Let's see what it's like. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go do this thing over here that I know that's positive, that's going to make me smile or make someone else smile. You know?
Right. And I know it's like even as far as today, first off, I mean, I admire everybody involved in all of these projects we mentioned for maintaining their lives outside of creativity and working and families and balancing all these things together and still accomplishing something.
Because, well, it doesn't always work out. Sometimes stuff goes by the wayside. Like we had the gentleman that was going to do the VFX.
Right.
It's like I'm pretty sure he had a lot of other stuff that was happening.
Right.
For him, that he had to make a decision and go, I'm sorry, I can't.
But still, I mean, Jay and you and all the actors involved and all, it all came together, and it's so admirable.
But it's like he had like actors dropping out.
Right.
There was like some reshoots that had to occur, and yeah.
But I mean, I know that I work a lot of hours myself, like 14 hours a day, for 4 days a week, and I didn't get very much sleep last night, and I know you didn't either. But I woke up today, and it was like in that kind of groggy sort of feeling, sort of burned out stage, and here I am having just paid for distribution for a podcast and committing to it and talking about all these things like I've done before and flaked on, and feeling completely burned out, but that made me want to participate more. Like, it made me excited to film with you today and to record with you today. But there was a moment where I told a dear friend of mine that I don't know if I'm losing my mind or finding myself. And really the only way is to go through it. And
that's a good line for a song.
Right. It's I mean, it's one of those things where I think creative people in general have these sort of compulsions or instinct that we sort of follow. And the only thing I know to do right now, for whatever reason, is to pursue these things. And I'm thankful to have people who, are kind of in the same boat. But I know that this has been a little long-winded, but I would like to say that it's okay to fall apart sometimes.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is you can always put yourself together, because I was talking to somebody who I'm not that really close with about whether or not they were inherently broken at the core. And I don't believe that anybody truly is. I mean, everybody breaks, but it's not beyond repair. So even in those times when you're, burned out or feeling like you can't do this anymore, I think it's important to have people who have been in the same boat, who are in the same boat, who tell you to just keep going. Yeah. And I think that that's kind of the whole point of this sort of universe, finally, after years of trying to figure out what it is. I mean, since, Kevin Smith started Smodcast, I wanted to do a podcast. And at this point in my life, I think I just want to tell people it's going to be okay and to just keep going. Even if you're not creative and even you just struggle to get out of bed in the morning or make it through the day, I think just keep going.
Absolutely. And I would interject here that it's okay to fail.
Oh, I mean,
most of what I set out to do ends up failing. Believe it or not.
Oh,
in my eyes,
you fail until you succeed.
And well, it's what I've learned is that's how you learn.
Right.
Right. It's what's the saying? Like Edison failed 99 times, and then he finally created the light bulb or whatever it was. Whatever the saying is. I'm running on fumes here.
Right. If you want to be dumb, you got to be tough. That song from Jackass. It's and not to call people stupid, but you know,
I think the ideal here, like the approach is, you know, you're strong enough so you can bend when life is throwing shit at you, you know. So it's like you can bend in the wind, but you don't break.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect note to end this on.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for letting me be a part of these things.
Oh, man, this has been a blast.
Yeah, it really has. And thank you so much, man. And I hope if anybody is listening out there who is struggling, I hope that they heard something here that sort of makes that light bulb click for them to keep going or to be positive or to kind of turn things around. Because I know for me, that's the things that listening to other people's perspectives is what has gotten me out of my own head.
Yeah.
And sort of gotten me through it. I mean, yours included. To segue into the next show, I mean, you played an integral role in my sobriety. So,
as you do mine.
You know, it's other people's stories help guide us in our own journeys. And we're all in this together. And I hope everybody takes care of themselves. You know, call your family, drink water, take your vitamins or your medicines that are prescribed, and don't give up, because you may inspire somebody else to not give up as well.
You never know. You never know what's going on.
You never know. But
might as well be nice. It costs $0.
Exactly. You know, and be gentle.
Yeah. I sometimes have problems with being gentle.
Well, yeah.
I'm a Leo, and I'm just excited.
I'm a Cancer Leo cusp, which means I'm bipolar.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I hope everybody takes care, and I will see you guys next week.